Welcome to another episode of the Point by Point Tennis Podcast. With you are your hosts, Carlos and Jishnu. And on today's show, we are doing Indian Wells Draw. And we're doing it in a
Yeah.
slightly different format that we've done in the past. We're going to be coming with bonus content episodes to do all of our draws this year for the big events. And this is the first of those of that series. And we can just get started. So,
Yeah.
in Indian Wells, we have our first Masters 1000 event, combined Masters 1000 event of the year.
hmm
And we did have two for the women in Doha and Qatar. And if you haven't listened to our previous episode where we covered some of that, please do so. It's already posted. We posted it yesterday, or I guess this morning. Recorded it yesterday, and we do have our thoughts on what happened in those events. But today we're going to be talking all about Indian Wells Draw. And the way that this is going to work is that we're going to talk about, what are the top seeds and their sections, giving some thoughts on what are kind of the easier parts of the draws and what are the most challenging ones and who are kind of the players to watch, both as potential dangers for the top seeds, but also maybe
hmm
some hot players coming in from the month of February that might go into deep runs in this tournament. Um, and then we'll kind of end with some early must-watch matches as well. And we're going to do this both for the men and for the women. So we'll start by saying that the defending champions are, as you can see from my picture in the background, Carlos Alcaraz and Elena Rybakina. And I gotta say, for Carlos Alcaraz, this was the most dominant tournament that I've seen from him since he became Carlos Alcaraz. So if he's gonna turn around some of the struggles that he's been having, and we know that he hasn't won a tournament since Wimbledon, um, I think this is the place for him to turn things around. So it'll be interesting to see if he can do that.
Interesting.
And it'll also be interesting to see if Elena Rybakina can come back and defend her title here.
Yeah.
Because she played a fantastic match last year, beating Sabalenka in the final. Um, and they're both coming pretty hot to this tournament as well. So other players that are of interest here is Novak Djokovic. He is back from being out for basically for because of the COVID vaccine situation. He wasn't permitted to come to the U.S. for a few years because of that, but he's back now. I was gonna say that also Nadal was back, but we just heard,
Yes.
I think it was an
Some
hour
sad
ago,
news.
that he actually had to withdraw from the tournament, and honestly, it's not very clear why. Um, from what we saw from
Yeah.
the Twitter post, it looked like it was more of a level thing. That he felt that his body was not, ready for like really tough competition, and to give him a chance to actually do some damage in this tournament. So he's probably saving himself for the clay. So unfortunately, he's not back, but Djokovic is back.
Yep.
And also on the women's side, Naomi Osaka is back, and it's going to be interesting to see how she continues her comeback right from maternity. She did look pretty well in some of the tournaments she's played so far. So I'm interested to see if she's going to be able to build on that in this tournament. Uh, and finally, I think it's important to mention that one of the biggest players to watch is Jannik Sinner because he is
Yes.
still
Undefeated.
undefeated, and it'll be interesting to see how far he can take this unbeaten streak. Um, so with that, I think we can jump right into the discussion of the draws
hmm
and what are their sections, and we'll start talking about the ATP, and then we'll move on to the WTA. So first thing first, where did the top four players land with respect to each other, and where did the other top eight players, so 5 to 8, land
hmm
within that? And for the men, what we can see is one of the biggest questions: where's Sinner and where's Medvedev? Sinner is actually going to be on Alcaraz's side, so a potential semifinal matchup. Should they hold seed, would be Jannik Sinner against Carlos Alcaraz,
Yep.
and that means that Novak Djokovic would face Daniil Medvedev in
Medvedev.
that
Yeah.
potential semifinal. And then in terms of quarterfinalists, I think one of the biggest people to watch, right, for from that 5 to 8 seed was where did Zverev land, and he landed in Alcaraz's section again. So it seems like Alcaraz and Zverev are drawn to each other a lot. They drew each other in the quarterfinals of the U.S. Open. Alcaraz won that one in straight sets. They also drew each other in Australia.
Australia.
Zverev won that one in four. And now they draw each other again in Indian Wells. So a bit unlucky for both of them, I guess. More for Alcaraz because honestly, anybody in the top four is tough for Zverev, but tough for Alcaraz to have to face Zverev again in another potential quarterfinal. And we'll see from our predictions if we think he's going to get there. So the potential quarterfinals, apart from that one, would be Sinner against Rublev, Medvedev versus Rune, and Hurkacz against Djokovic. Any initial thoughts on where people landed there, Jish?
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Zverev, plays throughout the tournament, and then, I mean, I think we're also Casper Ruud is probably someone to also look out for.
Mm-hmm.
He's done some damage in the past few weeks.
Yeah, he's played well.
Yeah, he's been playing well. So
yeah, definitely. We did cover that in our previous episode that we recorded yesterday. So if you're interested to hear our thoughts on that, please check it out.
And I think about Fritz too. I think
absolutely. Yeah, I think we're gonna talk about players that we're kind of eyeing as players to watch. And definitely Fritz is one of those that are gonna come up. So those are the potential quarterfinal matches for the men. Who do you think had the easiest draw versus, I guess, the more difficult draws? If you were to rank them 1 to 4, like who had the easiest and who had the hardest?
I mean, they're all going to be tough because everyone's playing this tournament, I think. Probably Sinner might have it the easier. And then maybe Djokovic has a better draw going into the semis.
Yeah. I think I agree with you with both of those. I had my order was hardest was Medvedev. And part of the reason is because some of the dangerous players that I had written down are in his section. Now, granted, one of them was Nadal, and he's out.
Yeah,
but true. Rune is in that section. I actually had Nadal beating Rune. But Rune is there, and he could be a tough opponent for Medvedev. Also, Taylor Fritz, and I think that's the big one. If there's one player outside the top 8 that I would have said, who am I watching for? It would have been Taylor Fritz because this is his best tournament for sure. Similar to Alcaraz, right? Because he has won this in the past. He beat Nadal 2 years ago. Last year, he made the quarterfinals and lost to Sinner in a very tight match. It went 3 sets and it was very competitive. And he actually made the semifinals a year before. He won it too. So he's gone deep a lot in this tournament, and it's his local tournament too. He's a home favorite. So he is in Medvedev's section, and Medvedev just came from a loss against Hugo Humbert in a tournament prior to the Sunshine Double. So he's also not coming in the best form. He also had that heartbreaking loss, right, in the Australian Open against Sinner from 2 sets up, couldn't finish the job, partly because Sinner became pretty incredible after that. But it's still heartbreaking because the second time has happened to him. So it's going to be interesting to see, like, where's his mind at. The last time he had the situation, right, he went through a really poor year. He went down in the rankings as low as 13. So I'm interested to see how he's going to respond to this. But Fritz will be a tough opponent for him, and that's why I think he has the hardest draw. And Alcaraz, I put him as second hardest just because Zverev is in his section. So it's more of because he drew the hardest, 5 through 8 player that you could face in the quarterfinal. So I put him second there. But definitely Sinner has pretty much no one in his section that I think is a threat to him. So
what about that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, in his quarterfinal, similarly to Alcaraz and Zverev, like I said, that they drew each other a lot. Sinner and Rublev, like they keep falling on each other's side. I think they also played in the Australian Open quarterfinal, so that's a favorable matchup for Sinner, for sure. So I think those are kind of the order for the men. Um, any other thoughts before we go on to kind of early must-watch matches from this?
I think that's good. Yeah,
Okay.
let's go on.
So I put down some matches. I originally had Nadal and Raonic as my number one
Yeah.
match to watch. Two guys that are coming back from injury time to trying to get that magic again one more time. Obviously Nadal at a more higher level, but Raonic, he was a Wimbledon finalist. Um, and he's been trying to come back for a little while. So that would have been amazing to watch, but unfortunately, not happening. So I had to scramble and find another match to write down. Um, for me, the three that I have, we already have the first round happen today, partially. So I put in a mixture of first round and second round matches to watch. Um, I put in Evans against Suffield as a first round match. It's the only one that I put from the first round at this point.
Mm,
Um, and the reason is because Evans, he's actually pretty good in hard courts, and he had a pretty nice end of the year last year. He had actually some pretty fun matches against Alcaraz, and he's shown pretty good level at times. He does go up and down. Like I think more recently he's struggled a little, but
mhm,
he is somebody that in hard courts can be fun to watch for sure. And Safiullin has, pretty much he had his best year of his career last year. Is a player that many people are not going to know, but he did make a deep run in Wimbledon last year, and
mhm,
he could that matchup of those two players that are kind of unknown could be a fun one for listeners to watch. And then in the second round, I just put in some higher profile matches. Right, we have on Matteo Arnaldi facing Carlos Alcaraz, and Arnaldi is a little bit less well known.
mm.
Um, but he is a pretty talented young player. He's also from Italy, and they've played in the past once. They played in the U.S. Open last year. It was a straight sets win for Alcaraz, but it was a pretty fun match. Um, and he struggled a little bit recently, so somebody like Alnardi who has a lot of talent would be a good test to see where Alcaraz is at. And then my third match is Murray against Rublev. Um, yeah, not we don't need to say much about that one, right? It's definitely a
Yeah.
legend of our sport in Murray, and then Rublev, who's always a top guy. So that's definitely a fun early matchup.
Did Murray win earlier already?
He did, yeah,
Okay, that's good.
yeah. So
Nice.
he's well, actually, give me your matches to watch, and I'll make sure that to confirm that while we do
Yeah.
that.
So right now I have
Yes, he did win.
Senegal playing Kasmanovic, which I think could be interesting.
That's a good match. Yeah,
Yeah. Um, and then Giron and Kokonakis. But I don't know, did they play already? I have
that
to
one
check
already
that.
happened.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh,
I
so it's
will tell you,
Kokonakis and Sinner.
Kokonakis and Sinner.
Okay.
That's a good
That
one
might
too.
be interesting. Yeah, that'll be an interesting match. And then yeah, I think this Murray and Rublev
Yeah,
match will be good too. Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, I think those are kind of um the first matchups that we should
Ooh,
focus on there.
I'll mention another one called Eubanks and Nakashima. That'll be
That one already
pretty.
happened too.
Oh, sorry. What
No
happened
worries.
there? Who won?
Nakashima won that one, and actually, I'm
Oh,
surprised. I thought Eubanks would win it, but
yeah.
Eubanks hasn't played that well recently. It's unfortunate because he had a really nice run last year. Um,
Hmm.
but recently he's just not been playing that great. And Nakashima actually was also coming off a dip because he played really well in 2022,
He did.
and then he was kind of like missing in action in 2023. So I was expecting Eubanks to actually win that, but Nakashima pulled it off.
Hmm.
He's gonna play Leheshka next,
Yeah.
which would be interesting too.
This will be interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I think for me, Evans, Safilin, Alcaraz, Rinaldi, Murray, Rublev, and then the other two that you mentioned are kind of the top matches to watch for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be
Uh, oh,
interesting
yeah,
to
go ahead.
see how, especially how Murray plays, because you know, we'll mention this in next episodes, but this may be one of his last matches
Yeah,
around this in this tournament. So yeah,
in his career, right? Like
yeah, in his
he's
career, he might be retiring retiring.
Yeah, he might be
Yeah.
retiring, so it will be. It's always, with players like him, like Nadal. It's just any time you can catch him, it's
It's
important
good to see. Yeah.
to see him one last time. And he's been struggling recently. He's been also getting a lot of questions about retirement, so he's also annoyed by it. But for sure, we should definitely catch that match to see Murray at least one more time in Indian Wells, and who knows if he's coming back. But yeah, um, any potential. So let's move on to kind of the um, potential surprise runs that you can see happening here. So potential dark horses.
Let's
I can start if you
see.
want.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, for me on the men's side, I have two. I wrote down actually four. So the first two are like players that probably people are not going to know that much. Although the first one, yes. Ugo Humbert is my first one. And tennis fans, maybe
He's
not
been playing
casual
really
tennis
well.
fans, but like people that are really into the tennis year round, like will know Ugo Humbert because every now and then he has a fantastic run, right, and wins the title. Actually has a surprising amount of titles for somebody who's not really been ranked that high in his
Hmm.
career. But now he's ranked. I think he's at the highest of his career now, and he actually won two tournaments prior to the Sunshine Double. So that's a big reason why I'm kind of keeping an eye on him because not only he win those two tournaments, he actually beat a lot of good players, including Medvedev, including Hurkacz twice in that run as well.
Hmm.
If I remember correctly, he also beat Dimitrov. So really good um, collection of wins there en route to two titles for Humbert. So he's playing in fantastic form at the moment. Another guy that I put in was Jakob. Jakob. I keep forgetting how to pronounce his name, but
Hmm.
Jakob Mensik.
That's it.
And he's a young guy that really took basically a week in February by storm by a run that he had. Um, he's very young, and clearly you can tell that after having a deep run, like his body did not hold up well, and the next week he
Hmm.
lost early. But the potential's there, and I think he could be somebody that can make some noise in this tournament. So keep an eye on Mensik as a potential dark horse. The other two are kind of mentioned in the same breath. So I have Fritz and Deminar, and I have them
Hmm.
more as not necessarily dark horses because
Are
they're
they
ranked
dark
high.
horses anymore?
Exactly, and kind of cheating. But the reason I have them there is because I think they can actually beat one of the top guys, like one of the top
Okay.
four. In the case of Deminar, I think a little less likely. He would have to beat Alcaraz, assuming he gets there. Um,
He's got
but
it.
but Deminar is playing the best of his
Tennis is,
career right
yeah,
now, and Alcaraz is struggling a bit.
it's
So
true.
he could be there for the taking. And I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the semis. Um,
Hmm.
and Fritz, like I mentioned, he's won this tournament before, right? And he's in a section with Medvedev, and Medvedev doesn't really
Right.
like this tournament. He says that this is a clay tournament. So he made the final
Hmm.
last year somehow, even though he complained so much. But um, he
Yeah,
that
I
that could be
remember he
dangerous.
said, didn't he say like when he won the match, he said, "Now I like it," or something. He
Exactly.
like switched in the tournament. He was like, "This is the worst because it's like clay." And then
Yeah,
when he started winning, he's like, "It can't be that bad."
it can be that bad. Exactly. He learned how to play. I mean,
Yeah, I
I
learned.
guess he likes the clay now too because he did
It's
win
true,
Rome
man.
last year somehow.
Oh, that's
Um,
right.
so out of nowhere. So, but yeah, I think Taylor Fritz is a guy to watch there. So, what are your dark horses?
Yeah, I mean, if Diminar is in the dark horse list of yours, I'm gonna put him on mine because I think he's obviously playing so well.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's actually been a joy to watch him improve.
yeah,
So
I agree.
similar to like how you said Sinner has been improving. Um, I'm gonna say Bublik is another one. He's
Okay,
somewhat,
yeah, that's
yeah,
a good
because
call out.
he
Yeah.
did, I think he what kind of finally got into the top 10
No,
recently,
not in the top
or not
10.
10, or the top
20 maybe.
20. Okay, yeah,
It's
top
possible.
20.
He's played well recently.
He's been playing well. um
Yeah, I like that
and
pick.
then I'm gonna say Some old and good classics for me. Stand the man. You
Ooh,
never know when he's gonna show up. But
that's a
he's always,
nostalgia pick.
yes, it is. And
Those are allowed.
I'm also gonna pick Tiafo. Tiafo, um, it is in the States, and I think he feeds off of energy. So, if he gets
That's a
the
good
crowd
point.
going, you never
I was
know
gonna
what's.
say he's been pretty bad recently, but you're right about the
Yeah,
fact that in the States he does feed off the crowd. So that could be something that
an
jolts
X
things for him.
factor. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if that helps him
I
because
mean,
he's
I'd
been
probably
pretty
say the
poor
same
recently.
same for Ben Shelton for him. Like those two,
Hmm.
could make some noise.
Definitely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
like those picks. Those are players to watch for sure in this tournament. Okay, how about we end with some predictions for the
Let's do
men?
it. Sure.
I'll start. So my quarterfinals, I have Djokovic defeating Casper Ruud. Um,
Okay.
and so basically, I have Ruud playing a little bit above his seed there. And then I have Fritz actually pulling off the
Oh gosh.
upset against Medvedev. Um,
Ooh.
I have Sinner beating Rublev in the quarterfinal, and I have Alcaraz beating Diminar.
Oh my God.
Um,
Okay, we have literally the same one.
we have
Yeah.
the same picks.
Yeah, like I
Wow,
have it
that's
written
crazy.
down. Yeah.
That's
Okay, let's
crazy.
see what
Okay.
happens.
Then I have Djokovic beating Fritz to
Gosh.
make the final. I have this one's gonna be different for sure. I have Alcaraz beating Sinner.
Oh,
And
okay.
then yeah, and then I have Djokovic winning the title.
Okay.
And the reason is because for Alcaraz making the final, he has to play well in this tournament. Otherwise, he's gonna be in mentally he's going to be not in a great state because this tournament is designed for him. Like he really he is the type of player that likes these slow courts, these gritty courts, bouncing high the ball, think of his kick serve,
Yeah.
think of his drop shots on this court. Amazing for the skill sets that he has, right? And he has the power to hit through it. So he is tailor made for this court, and it's shown, right? You can see from my picture, he is the defending champion.
Mm.
So if he doesn't put it together in this tournament, like it's gonna be tough for him. But I do have him losing the final to Djokovic just because Djokovic is also amazing at this tournament. He's won it 5 times. That's a record, tied with Roger Federer, and he's coming hungry in this tournament. He hasn't played at
Mm.
all, and I think he's going to be hungry to beat the young players, especially if he faces Sinner or Alcaraz in the final. So just by that,
Yeah.
I give the edge to Djokovic. But yeah, you already gave kind of your predictions all the way to the semis because
Well,
it's the same for us. So
yeah, it's the same semis,
yeah, so
but
you got Sinner beating Alcaraz.
mm, oh no, no, sorry, not the same semis, same quarters.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so for the semis, I have Djokovic beating Ruud,
Oh,
Fritz
rude.
beating. I
Okay.
have yeah, no, Djokovic beating Ruud.
Okay. Oh, quarterfinals.
Casper,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
quarterfinals, right?
Well, those
And
are the
then
same, right? You said that they were the same,
yeah,
so we could
those are
just
the
skip to the
same.
semis.
Yeah, so we have Fritz and Djokovic,
Hmm.
and I think Djokovic is gonna win that.
Right.
That's my take. And then I have Sinner and Diminor, and I have
Okay.
Sinner winning that. So I guess that's where it's different, right? So
And also Deminar beating
yeah,
Alcaraz.
yeah. So Diminor beat Alcaraz, yeah. So final is going to be Djokovic, Sinner, and Sinner wins it for me.
Okay.
Yeah,
It'll be interesting
Sinner
because
is going to go
Sinner,
undefeated
this is the type of court that
forever
is
and
not
ever.
really suited that much for Sinner's game, but if he can actually pull this off, like I can see him going for the Sunshine Double in Miami.
I don't see why not.
It's because his game is a little bit more flat. He's better in faster surfaces, although he's showing that he's good everywhere, right? But Australia is a fast court. He won in I forget what the tournament was. I think it was Rotterdam.
He yeah,
He won that one. That
he
was an
did really well
indoor,
in ATP
fast
tour.
indoor. ATP is a fast indoor.
Yeah,
All of the
World Tour
tournaments that he
finals.
won in this really incredible run are
Yeah,
fast events.
I think he's feeling really confident. I
We're
don't
about to
see
find
any
out.
reason why he's gonna drop his level due to the courts. So
I
we'll see.
I can see it. I mean, it's
Yeah.
gonna be something that we're gonna learn, right? We
Yeah,
haven't
yeah, we'll
actually
see.
see him be
Yeah.
successful in this tournament or this type of tournament. Although
Mm-hmm.
last year he did make the semis, but he lost pretty convincingly to Alcaraz. But then he went and beat him in Miami the next week, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
Miami's a faster tournament. It's a faster court.
Yeah.
Um, so if he can pull off Indian Wells, I say that the sunshine doubles on for Sinner. So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. I think that definitely can happen. But we have slightly different predictions. We have Djokovic beating
Let's see what happens.
Alcaraz on my side. You got Sinner defeating Djokovic in the final. We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
We gotta put some stakes on these predictions at some
We
point.
should. We should.
Maybe okay. Let's do it right now.
Oh gosh.
For the next one, for it, whoever wins this one is buying dinner for the other person for this podcast. For
Wow.
Miami, we'll do something different.
Wow.
But
Okay.
but for this one,
It
somebody's gonna
sounds
buy dinner
sounds
of your choice. So if I
okay.
want some lobster or something, I'm sorry,
Oh
you're
my
screwed.
gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right. All right. All right. We'll do
I'll
it.
be nice to you though.
Yeah. Yeah. No lobsters.
Maybe you could get me the bag of popcorn from Costco that I really like.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That could be the thing that I get.
The lesser
Um,
evil. Yeah.
exactly. To be nice to you, you know. Okay, you want to do the women's side real quick,
Yeah. Let's
and
do
then
it.
call it an episode. So for the women's side, on in terms of the sections, we have Iga and Rybakina on the same half. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess the biggest question for me was always going to be where, because Rybakina is like
Mm-hmm.
kind of the number three in my head of best players, right? More dangerous players, and she is the defending champion. She fell on Iga's side.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and Coco Gauff ended on Sabalenka's side. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
actually pretty good in terms of competition because I think Gauff has kind of a better shot at beating a Rybakina,
Like
Sabalenka
Sabalenka. Well,
than an
she
Iga.
just
She's
did.
really
So.
matched really bad
Mm-hmm.
against Iga and lost pretty much every match except one against her. So it's kind of nice that Rybakina and Iga for the semis if they both make it, and then go off
Mm-hmm.
against Sabalenka because they're also pretty competitive. Um, and then in terms of the quarterfinals, so Iga would face by seed. It would be Jabor, which I think that's a pretty great draw for her. Um, Rybakina would face Vondrousova, and who knows if Vondrousova is going to make it or not. She's so hit or
Right.
miss.
Yeah.
Um, and then Coco Gauff against Kim Win Zhang. That's a pretty tough quarterfinal for Gauff if that happens. And
Yeah.
then Sabalenka would be drawing Jessica Pegula, who's been struggling a lot recently. So I think that's a pretty good draw for Saba. So overall, any thoughts on who you think has the easiest versus the hardest? I can start.
Mm,
For me, I think Iga definitely has the
that's
hardest
a
draw.
hard. I mean,
And it's not even because of the quarterfinal matchup is actually the easiest of the four as well. And in that sense, that was good because Ons Jabeur is not healthy right now. So I doubt she's even making that match. The problem though is that early on she has very bad draw. Like she literally has kind of like
yeah.
a copycat of the Australian Open draw where she has Collins. She's gonna
That's
start out with
tough.
Collins,
That's tough. Yeah.
and then it could be what's her name that beat her actually in
So there's keys there too.
she beat her in Australia.
Oh no, Noskova. Noskova.
Noskova, yeah.
Yeah, Noskova.
So Noskova's there. You said
Yeah.
Madison Keys is also there.
It's
And
dangerous.
Keys has beaten Iga before pretty
Mm-hmm.
handily on hard courts in the U.S. Um, she did that in Cincinnati last year, but
These are
or maybe
slower.
2 years ago.
Oh yeah.
These are slower, so it should be a little bit better for Iga. And she has won this tournament in the past, so definitely she's shown success. But I think that's a brutal draw for her. And then
Mm.
also, of course, you add on to that in the semis, you drew Rybakina instead of Coco Gauff. So I can see her losing any of those matches, if
Yeah.
any of those players are coming hot. So that's why I think hers is the hardest. I think Coco is next just because Kim Win Jing is in her side and she's been playing
Mm-hmm.
fantastic recently. She played the Australian Open final as well.
Mm-hmm.
So And I think Sabalenka had the easiest draw in my opinion for the women. Any
Yeah, I mean,
disagreements there?
I would agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Iga has it brutal. Yeah.
It's yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wrote down dangerous players here. I have 6, and 4 of them are on Iga's side. And
Yeah.
I didn't even
It's
write
true.
Noskova, so that would be
That's
5.
another one for
Yeah, so Collins, Keys, and then importantly Ostapenko as
Ostapenko.
well is in
It's
the
like
side.
she has a weakness against her.
She's never beaten her,
Yeah.
so that would be interesting. And
Well,
then
yeah.
I had Katie Bolter as well, but she just lost. Katie Bolter just won a tournament coming into
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
event, and then lost in the first round. That happens sometimes. You have a fantastic week, and then you're tired, and you lose the first match. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that it happened in the bigger events, but it's good for her that she won a title, though.
Mhm.
And then the other 2 players that I kind of wrote here were Samsonova, because she kind of like when she's on, she could just hit anyone off the court.
Mm.
It's happened a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
Um, Osaka is also a player that I put down as a danger.
Yeah.
And obviously for the 5 to 8 group, Kim Win Jin I think is the worst. And all 3 of those are on Coco's side. So I think Coco and Iga have the most
Mhm.
dangerous players on their side of the draws. Um, yeah. Anything to add to
Yeah.
that before we go to early
Yeah.
must-watch matches for the women?
I'm gonna say Wozniacki is probably someone to watch out for too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I mean she's like she got a wild card, I think, and Pliskova is also, but I haven't seen her form.
Pliskova's actually
Yeah,
been playing pretty
yeah.
good
Oh
recently.
yeah, okay.
She was struggling a lot last year, but recently she's playing pretty well. So
Yeah,
she could be dangerous for sure.
yeah.
So that's a good shout. Okay, let's go to the must-watch matches. So I don't have any from the first round because a lot of matches already happened, and when I went through the draw, I honestly didn't see any like super popcorn match.
Mm,
So I'm
I
gonna
didn't either.
mention, yeah, I'm gonna mention second round matches that are already set up. I'll
Okay.
start with probably the most interesting one, which is Iga and Collins. Um,
Yes,
and they
absolutely.
played a really, really good match in the Australian Open. Iga had to really dig deep to come back from that match
Hmm.
in the third set. So that would be fun to watch. Um, I actually had to scratch one that I had written down. I had written down Rybakina against Badosa, but unfortunately, Badosa has to
Pulled
pull
out.
out of the event. So that's not happening anymore. So instead, I'll say Osaka against Samsonova is actually a pretty good
Yeah,
one. And I mentioned them both as dangerous players on Coco's side. Well, they're facing each other in the second
so
round.
that's good. Yeah.
So if Osaka can win that, that's an opportunity there to go deep. Because Samsonova is the player that is ranked in this
Hmm.
section. Um, so that's interesting. And then I have a few other matches. Pegula against Pliskova. You just mentioned Pliskova.
Hmm.
She's playing Jessica
That's
Pegula.
tough. Yeah, it's a
That's a
tough
really
draft.
good match.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely a must-watch match early on. And the last one that I have here is Caroline Garcia against Sofia Kenin. And Kenin is obviously a Grand Slam champion who kind of fell off the radar for a little bit, but since last year,
Hmm.
she's been slowly working her
Getting
way
back up.
back
Yeah.
and has had good wins against good players recently,
Mm.
including Coco Gauff and Sabalenka last year at different points. It's been hard for her to like put it together and win multiple matches in a tournament to go deep, but
Yeah.
she's had some good results here and there, and it's enough for me to sort of mention it as a potential good match against
Hmm.
Garcia. So those are my much watches. Do you agree with all of those, or do you have some extra ones to throw on there?
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that one. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how Garcia plays in that match. I mean, I just have a few to it's to add to that that would just to see the people's form. So, I mean, it'd be interesting to see Venus again. She's an old timer.
Yeah, true.
Maybe one for the books. But
I
yeah, I
gotta
would
say,
say
I'm super impressed that she's still
she's still out there.
just still
Uh,
out there. Like
yeah,
she's
it's
still
amazing.
like fit enough to play competitive tennis. Like
Yeah,
that's incredible at her age.
yeah. And I'm actually interested to see how Raducanu is going to be playing too.
Yeah.
She got a wild card to this tournament, so yeah,
Yeah,
those
she
are
she
good.
played. pretty well recently.
Hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see if she can put it together and make a deep run.
Yeah, because you never know when she gets hot, she's gonna just she'll she'll put up bagels and breadsticks like
Oh yeah,
like Iga.
like Iga, star home baker.
Yeah, start a bakery.
She certainly did that against who was it? Sarasa Rivas Tormo in the U.S. Open.
Well, yeah.
Won a total of 1 game in that match.
Oh gosh, yeah, brutal. Yeah, those are my
Cool.
all right.
Okay, so let's do well I
Potential
sorry. I have
quarters.
a few potential surprise picks. I kind of mentioned them
Mm-hmm.
already. Keys because she always does well in hard courts in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Is somebody who you have to watch out for. And I mentioned these other two, but Osaka and Kim Win Jang are two players that we should keep an eye on for sure as making potential deep runs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, I had Wozniacki possibly making some noise. Collins, which if she can get past Iga, would be, oof, it's gonna be interesting. And then, yeah, Osaka for me is sort of like a wild card.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go on to predictions and close out the podcast. So, for I can start. For me, I do have Iga surviving all of the
Ooh,
potential threats.
look at that.
Um,
So much
I
faith.
yes, I have faith in Iga. I do think because of the slow conditions, she might be able to sustain all of these big hitters.
Okay.
So that's my thought process there. And I actually have her beating Ostapenko for the first time in her career. So that would be she has to. I mean, if they
Wow.
play again,
Wow.
Ostapenko cannot keep winning every time, right? Iga's too good to have 0 wins.
I think of it as like Ostapenko's the bully and
Yeah,
Iga's like just
just
getting
taking it.
hammered.
Well, not anymore. Um,
It's over.
I have yeah, it's done. I have Rybakina beating Marta Kostyuk in the quarterfinal. So
Okay.
facing Iga in the semis, and then I have Kim Win Jang pulling the upset against Coco Gauff.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then I have Sabalenka beating Leila Fernandez in the quarterfinal. Um,
Ooh.
yeah, I do think that Pegula is not playing very well recently, and she's there for the taking. So I think she'll just lose before even. I think she'll actually lose to. She'll lose her match against Pliskova. So is what I have.
Hmm.
So I think Leila survives that section and makes the quarters, and I think at that point Sabalenka takes her out. So my semis are Rybakina against Iga, and Saba against Kim Win Jae in a rematch of the Australian Open final.
Wow.
I have Sabalenka winning that, making the final, and I have Rybakina beating Iga, and we'll have a rematch of last year's final, and we'll have the same result. I have Elena Rybakina winning the title back to back.
Wow. Interesting.
Hmm.
Yeah. I
What do you
yeah,
have?
I'll tell you what I have. I have some interesting picks. There may not be
Oh, this is
the
gonna be fun.
most logical picks. It's grounded.
See,
Yeah.
I go for the logic, and you go for the fun.
Yeah.
We need to
I
balance each
have
other out.
I have Zhang playing Osaka,
Okay,
and
I like it.
then I have C Garcia playing Zabalenka.
Okay,
And then on the top I have Madison Keys taking the
okay.
upset there. Yeah, yeah, taking out Iga and playing Wozniacki.
Oh wow,
I know.
I really would be surprised if that happens.
She's a fighter. She has a lot
She
of
is.
experience and a good mental game. So I think that's what maybe will pull her through.
We shall
And
see.
then Rybakina and Vondrasova, which
Okay.
I don't know how Vondrasova does it, but she'll get there.
I mean, Vandrushova is just
It is.
impossible to pick, so you either
Yeah,
are going to be
yeah,
completely
you
right or
get
completely wrong.
completely wrong. So I think Zhang is going to beat Osaka and C Garcia is going to beat Sabalenka, which is a very bold statement. Um, and Madison Keys beats Wozniacki and Rybakina beats Vondrosova.
Okay.
Vondrosova. And so I have Zhang beating Garcia and Rybakina beating Keys and Rybakina winning it all, just like you.
Okay. So we
So
do have the same champion, but we
back
have a
to back,
very, very different route of getting there.
very, very different.
For Rybakina. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Yeah, I
yeah.
think in the women's side, it's very hard for me to not pick the best three players. Like
It's true. It's
they're
true.
just so good. I mean, Iga is the most likely to go out just because of the sheer amount of threat she has in our
She
side.
has a tough draw. Yeah.
It's a very tough draw, but they're just playing so much better. Like Iga,
Then everyone
Rybakina,
else. Yeah.
and Saba are playing so much better than everyone else. Um, it's just hard to not pick them. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think Rybakina winning Indian Wells, that would make sense.
Mhm.
So
Yeah,
we got
it'll be fun.
I have Djokovic and Rybakina, and you got Sinner and Rybakina to
I
win.
know.
Let's see if you're gonna be buying me popcorn or I'm gonna be buying you something.
Oh,
You don't have to think now, but
what if we both don't get any?
true. Then we'll see how many. We'll do it by amount of right guesses.
Ooh.
Um,
So there's gonna
so
be a
we'll do it
winner.
that way. We'll start
Oof.
at the final to see who got the final right. If we didn't get the final, we'll do the semifinal.
Okay.
And we'll play it that way. And we're both completely wrong. Then nobody has to buy anybody something. So
Okay.
yeah.
We have stakes.
we got stakes now. We'll get better stakes for
Okay.
the next episode. So let's wrap it out here. One more thing before we close out. We will be doing another draw show just like this, for Miami, and that's going to be
So stay
happening
tuned.
about over a week. Once the draws are out for Miami, so stay tuned for that. We will not be doing a recap show just for Indian Wells, but we will do a full episode recap of the Sunshine Double of Miami and also Indian Wells together, and we'll give our thoughts as a whole, right, for the two tournaments as we go into the clay season. Just you want to close us out?
Yeah. Yeah. Please subscribe to us on your favorite podcasting app. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and most other podcasting platforms. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Reddit at Point by Point Pod, and on YouTube at Point by Point Tennis Podcast. So, yeah, that'll wrap it up. We'll see you at the Miami draw, and enjoy watching some of the Indian Wells action.
Thank you,
See you
everybody.
guys.
See you next time.